So as I said last week, and in case you missed it, the Galene giveaway is now in full swing. Our summer giveaway is absolutely popping off right now. It's just amazing. Of course, if you want to get involved, find out the prize. It's actually so cute. Genuinely jealous of the person that's going to get this. Hand on heart, genuine on that one. Absolutely everything you need to know about the giveaway is on our Instagram. If you already know what's at stake and are ready and raring to get involved, make sure you follow us on Instagram. But you can fill in the questionnaire as it is linked in the description below on this podcast. It's basically linked everywhere. You can literally find it wherever you want. But because you are our podcast listeners, we made sure that it was here and ready for you. That's it. I've basically got nothing else to say on that one. I am genuinely so excited for this. Don't be silly. Don't miss out on something that I promise is genuinely super worth it. The Galene Woman knows that time is actually her best friend. Hello, welcome. I'm Cole. This is the Galene podcast where self-care is your best friend and nobody is ever going to give you a hard time for prioritizing yourself. In fact, I'm pretty convinced we would fight someone if they're giving you a hard time because we know you actually deserve to put your feet up. Okay, here's the usual drill before I start any episode. As you may already know, it's required by law, Galene law of course, to be doing something for yourself while you listen to this podcast. I don't make the rules, that's just how it is. Came up a long time ago, all that jazz. So if you are travelling, gaze longingly out the window and do nothing else for the next however long this episode ends up being. If you're at home, maybe go find your favourite slippers, make yourself a cuppa. I am currently on my chamomile grind. I'm currently sipping coffee, however, which I'm not going to lie, really not hitting right now, but it's okay. I will invest in some better coffee. But basically, you should do this so you can say that you took some time to take care of yourself today, just for you, just today. Tick it off, all great. Okay, now that's been said, let's get on to the episode. So the title of this week's episode ended up being The Galene Woman Knows that Time is Actually Your Best Friend, which I have to say is not what it usually feels like. Normally it feels like you're running around like a headless chicken, but I want to spend this episode talking about the idea of slowing down because when I was thinking about crafting this season, I really wanted to expand and explain and delve into why I keep coming back to that phrase, take a break, because I feel like it's inherently tied to the idea of, do I have the time to do that? And, you know, it can feel really difficult to use time to your advantage. You know, I spent a lot of the last episode talking about how hard it can be to actually balance things, you know, and it can really feel like time is a constraint and something that is not working with you, it's working against you. So that idea of taking a break automatically comes with the do I have time? So we're going to break that down. We're going to look at it. We're going to have a think about it. And, you know, self-care plays into this massively because I don't know about you guys, but there are very few moments in my life where I actually do feel like looking at my to-do list, I've ticked everything off, there's nothing else to do, and I can put my feet up. Very rare. Not very often I feel like that. So I totally get it. Super difficult. But I think I said this last week, and maybe even in the last season, actually, I was like flicking through some of the episodes we did, and I'm definitely convinced I said this in one of them. And that is, if you aren't taking any proper time to switch off, when aren't you switched on? When are you actually fundamentally resting, other than sleep? And even that might not be your best, you know. When are you actually giving yourself the time to rest and reset and figure out yourself in a calm and chilled environment without guilt, without feeling like you don't have the time to do that? When are you doing it without feeling like this isn't something you're allowed to do personally? When is that actually happening? You know, if you aren't giving yourself the space to do it. And the main reason I keep coming back to this thought is because, and this might be a little bit existential for, what is it, Sunday? But every day is your life, not the future. And that means if you're not giving yourself the space and time to feel like you're resting in balance to everything else, and you're constantly buzzing about, one, you don't have balance, and two, how do you feel like you're living life, and how can you appreciate the times where you are switched on if you don't have times where you switch off? Do you know what I mean? Am I making sense? So why do I feel like time is something we are always worrying about? Well, the wonders of social constructs, for starters. We love that. We live our life by the clock. Therefore, when we're stressed and we're overwhelmed, it can feel like that clock is moving way faster than it actually is. And as somebody who is a diary keeper, I plan my week now. I'm gonna say this now. I was not a diary keeper until about 12 months ago, which makes sense because that's when I started Galene. But I have learned that just because you keep a diary does not mean that you are time friendly. But now sitting every Sunday planning out my week, I have realized that jumble of stuff that you have to do can really just feel genuinely mad. Like I sit and I look sometimes at the list of things, I need to meet with that person, email this person, film this, record that, edit this, put that forward, post this, and also deal with my personal life and have a university degree. I still have that to do. It can be mad. And genuinely, the people that do not keep diaries in their life, I don't know how you do it, man. I honestly, even with a diary, I feel like that. So, do you know what I mean? Like how, creds to you. So, what has this got to do with self-care? Why has our complete inability to feel like time is on our side impacting our ability to prioritize ourselves? Well, when you feel like time is not on your side, peaceful experiences, self-care, moments to yourself do not feel like a priority. They just don't. When you are that overwhelmed and when you're that, living by the never-ending to-do list and just constantly trying to get it done, that stuff falls to the bottom of the pile, man. Like, there is no way when you come to sit down, especially when you don't sit down and plan your week, it's the last thing you want to do. It's the last thing you want to put in there because you're sitting there and thinking, I need to do this, that, and the other. And, like last week, me talking about turning off that inner voice of something else to do is super hard. Like, how do you, one, turn that off? Two, make time your friend. And then three, implement self-care without feeling guilty about it. Question for the ages, man. But that's why I'm here. So obviously I can only say from the experiences I've personally had with university, college, Galene, but I imagine it's fairly similar for people with a career, partner maybe, lifing younger is probably what I'm trying to angle at here. But I'm also super conscious of how this must be super crazy hard, turning off that voice and going through the steps that I just outlined. Once you're someone with a kid or you're someone who has another person relying on you, like in any context, I have no idea how can feel like it's an okay thing to turn off the voice in your head that tells you, but they need me. I keep coming back to this idea of how feminine that particular line is, because as much as I am incredibly curious to know what the male perspective on that one is, because it is a time-old tradition of women giving up their time to serve others and to help others. And I hardly need to elaborate on that one in terms of you understanding that deep feeling of everybody else comes before me. And there are very few women in my life that I have met that don't feel like that. So all of this is to say, why on earth have I titled this episode, Time is Actually Our Best Friend? Yeah, seems kind of ridiculous, considering that I myself am a part of the group that does not feel like that sometimes. And I'm going to be wholly honest. My mindfulness journey and my need to rapidly improve my time management skills is 100% the reason why I have come to the conclusion time is actually your best friend. And having the ability to control your time is your best friend too. Because although I don't always feel like this, as I think is very clear from the ramble that I've just given you. I know that when it comes down to it, I actually have the ability to give myself the time that I want for myself and for my work. Even the phrase time management is actually kind of ridiculous because, we think it's something that has to be managed and that it has to be controlled and is against us and is ultimately negative. Like, it's not a positive phrase, is it? You need more time management skills. It's not something you ever want to see. But changing your mindset around what it means to control your time is something we're going to talk about, and is something that I feel changes the game when it comes to implementing self-care in your life, and changes the game in terms of giving yourself the space to breathe, to live, to be happy, because it actually does work in our favor when you think of it like that. I saw a recent creator, like a content creator, talking about how she divides her life into literal hours plus sleep. And I'll be honest, I think this is perhaps why this episode has felt so important to me, to talk about the concept of, your time. And I love it. I think it's really cool that she's able to think about her life like that, but it could not be me. I would feel like I'm programming myself. I really do get nervous about having such rigid routines. Like, the routines in my life do not take up more than about 45 minutes. Because if I do not feel like I have breathing space between even the events in a busy day, I do not feel like I can function, because I'm like, oh my God, I've got to live like by this point, by this point, by this point. It's too much. It feels like continual constant work, even if it is supposed to be a relaxing thing. And I remember when I first started Cambridge, my timetable, not just lectures and classes, but literally the work that I had planned in for myself so I could complete whatever assignments I had, was literally overlapping with other stuff that I'd put in. Like, it overwhelmed me on another level. Like, it was like 9 a.m, probably earlier than that, because I would always put in my morning routine. So it'd be like 7:30, 7:45 in the morning to 7 p.m. at least. Sometimes later than that. I know people like to live like that, but I and can survive off it, but I am not about surviving. I am about enjoying my time. I think that would be quite understandable from your perspective. And, I want to enjoy my life on this little earth. So I don't like living like that, and I feel like that's the crux of the issue. For many people as well. I definitely, at that particular point, so what's this? 2022? September to December kind of time we're looking at here. Like, I really struggled to manage my days, my work, and my time. Dead ass came out of my first term at Cambridge like, well, not sure I can go back to that. And I think there's a lot of people that live like that without the term time structure. I realised that I really couldn't do it in that way, where I had every block, every hour, defined by something. And it was a pretty eye-opening experience. I had been living like that for so long, and I'd gone from crazy, just a jumbled to-do list, to living like this, and I'd never really had anything different. And I knew it was time for change. Like, I that January, I remember so clearly, because I just got off a flight from New York, and I'd sat in my first year bedroom, terrified of the term coming, because I knew I couldn't live like that. I just knew something had to change. And this was also around the time, interestingly enough, that I started therapy. And therapy definitely personally helped me with this one. It wasn't my first time seeing a therapist. And I really do get that for some people this is not something they want to try, and it's totally down to you. But genuinely, having someone completely unbiased sit there and tell me that I probably should slow down felt way more powerful than hearing it from my mum. Like, it really validated me in thinking, yeah, there is something wrong about the way I'm managing my time and the way I'm thinking about my life and how I'm organising the way I live. So unsurprisingly, I eased up on the Google Calendar. I still use Google Calendar actually, but it definitely does not look like it used to. But it did take me a second. It really, really, really did, to come to realise it does not have to be that deep all the time. It doesn't have to be that intense all the time. I know me and my friend Rose talk about this a lot, that idea that we can live our lives, be human, enjoy ourselves without having to sacrifice our degree. You know, and I think there's so many people who apply that same thought process, or the adverse of that thought process, to everything else. Of, I'm sacrificing my career, I'm sacrificing my relationship, my kids, my relationship with my family, and my hobbies, or whatever the hell, because I'm trying to live my life. And it's like, it gets jumbled in your head. I totally get it, as you can tell. But she really is, Rose, we love her. She is personally living proof that you can get a first at Cambridge and not live in the library every single day, which is a bit of a flex, can't lie. But it's true. So I stopped deeping it after, I went into my second term at Cambridge, really focusing on finding the way I could live my life and be myself and enjoy my time, as well as being productive. I realised that time is not my enemy. It is not working against me. And I think that's perhaps the fundamental of this episode, is that you don't have to fear something that you do have a lot of. We kind of live in this society that loves to tell you you're only young once. You're only 25, 18, 30, 45 once, and you should take charge of it. And yeah, that's true, but it also seems to come with this added thing of it's running out, and yeah, time is not indefinite, but it is on your side. You can spend it how you wish, so you don't have to spend your whole day working. Because you are allowed. There is nobody telling you you can't go and do things just for yourself. That thought, that idea saved me from spending my whole day in front of the screen. And it actually held me accountable to breaking down my time into what felt good for me. And I guess the next line of this is how you're spending that free time. Because I don't know about you, I am a master procrastinator. Brilliant at doing everything but the thing I need to do. So many hours and minutes of my life just scrolling on my phone, going out when I really shouldn't have done, sitting and doing Galene work when I should have been doing Cambridge work, doing Cambridge work when I should have been doing Galene work. I am sure in your life you can think of the hours that you have given to that. And that may make you feel bad, but don't, because every one of us does it. And I feel like that also plays into, perhaps this is our second reason as to why time does not feel like our best friend sometimes. It's stacked against us because we're all amazing at procrastinating. But my little solution is perhaps going to sound a little bit mad, but I know in my day when I'm going to procrastinate. So I plan it in. I know around lunchtime, from around, once I've eaten, maybe 1:30 to about 3:30, I'm not going to be your most engaged, productive self. Very rarely am I working during that time. So I make a point of leaving a blank in my calendar for that. And that's pretty much it. It's not as complicated as you think it would be. As long as you can keep yourself accountable, leaving that little space on your calendar and know that time is not doing anything. You're just chilling. You can scroll on your phone, but, I like to go have my lunch, walk the dog, read a book maybe watch an episode of a TV series. Currently waiting every Monday for House of Dragons, but that's fine. But the obvious one that comes out of that is getting yourself to move on from it. And clearly having that time and that space to do nothing and then going into work. And that does take a little self-love and a kick up the butt, I'm not gonna lie. But I genuinely do find that when I know that I have a couple hours dotted throughout my day where I'm not going to be doing anything particularly difficult, or I know I'm going to go see a friend, or that I'm traveling or whatever, and that it's kind of in there without me hardcore scheduling it, in kind of quotation marks, I'm usually okay saying, all right, I've actually had a rest. It's actually time to focus. And I focus better. I think that's definitely the key. When you've not been focused in all the time and trying to force yourself to do work, you've given your brain the break and you come back into it. Every single time management skill, every single like study hack I've ever seen is always talking about like taking those breaks and then going back in and focusing. And it is true. It's just about finding the way that that actually works for you, because personally hate the Pomodoro technique. Don't know how anybody focuses for 25 minutes and then takes a break. Like, obviously I'm not going to work with that. That just doesn't fit my brain. But if it does for you, go for it. You know, that's what I'm talking about here, is finding the way time fits for you. But I get that that will take a second, but that's okay. I am sure there are plenty of ways to crack your code on making time something that you work with and that you actually feel like is there for you. You have time to do the work. You have the time to rest. You have the time to see your friends. You do. It's there. You also have way more hours than you think you do. And if you just sit and do the task and focus on it, I know that can be difficult, and that's why I mean find your way. You know, trial and error. There will be something that fits for you. You know, I put my phone in my bag, literally zip the thing, put it on do not disturb, and I make sure my laptop's on it too. You know, there are plenty of ways of doing it. You will eventually find that you're doing things quicker, you're achieving the things you want to do, you're getting through your to-do list, that your to-do list isn't overwhelming, and you have the space to breathe. You can probably also, and this is something that same content creator talked about, which I do actually think is a good idea, which is figuring how long it will take you to do that task. You know, you will fill the time that you have. You know, if you give yourself a whole day to write an essay, you will take a whole day to write that essay. But if you only give yourself 4 hours, then you're only going to take 4 hours. Giving yourself the space by knowing that time is doing that for you already, you can spend how you want. And it's like every morning I have my dailies, right? I'll give you an example. I have the approvals that I need to go through, so checking through my emails and making sure that any work that I have sent out that has been requested to be looked at, I've done. I make sure I go through the notes that I made throughout the day yesterday, and I put them into my like master to do as to figuring out what kind of tasks they are. And at the moment, I'm currently resharing a load of content onto our other platforms, so I sit and do that. And I have a look at what stories are going up on Instagram, because that's the big social media thing that I'm running at the moment. So I do that every single day. I know for a fact that if I just sit down and do it, all of that will probably only take me 45 minutes. So I only ever plan to do that for 45 minutes. And normally that's how long it will take me. Now, don't get me wrong, if I have like a crazy amount of approvals or something goes wrong with the upload, it will take me a little bit more time. But I know for a fact that if I just do the task, 90% of the time there won't be a problem, and 90% of the time it'll be done. And there we go. So I really do recommend figuring out how long certain tasks take you, especially if you're in university, especially if you're somebody that has specific set tasks that you do a lot. It will give you way more space than you realise. Absolutely. It gives you the ability to take the jumble of random stuff you have to do and prioritise, because then you can think, okay, you know, I have to do this, but I know it only actually takes me about an hour and a half to complete this. So I'll stick in an hour and a half in my to-do, and that's it. I'll sit and I'll do it. And I'll take a break afterwards. I'll go get a coffee with a friend, or I'll go have some lunch and take a mindful walk, or whatever the hell. And yeah, you'll be amazed at how quickly you realise that I have time. I can do this. It's chill. I love the moment where I'm planning my week and I get to like Wednesday and I realise I only have 4 things to do today. And I only have a couple of emails to send and to write the next episode for this, or to film a bunch of content, and it won't take me more than a couple of hours. I love it. It's amazing because I've spent that time knowing that that task only takes me 20 minutes and that task takes me an hour. I really, really enjoy it because it gives me my time back, and I feel like time is on my side because of it. For the crazy people out there who want to know how I run my master to do, I tend to break my tasks down into urgent and important. I think there is a name for this particular way of breaking down your tasks, and if somebody knows it, like, put it in the comments, because seriously, it's amazing. I put it into what's urgent and important, my absolute have to do's, what's not urgent but still important, what's neither, and what is one of those really annoying things where you have to do it like right now, but it's not actually that important, and it really annoys me every single time one of those comes up in my life. And yeah, I break it down into those 4 things, and then I put it throughout my week as based on what I've labelled it as. There you go. That's how I organise my life. And I do that with everything. I literally live by that code. Plus my dailies, that's pretty much it. So there you go. Crazy people, take notes, because that is how I live my life. But it gives me my time. It means that I can sit and have a coffee with my mum in the morning, and I have no stress because I know that everything else that I've got to do is pretty much set out for me to start at 10 a.m. or to start at 1 a.m. 1 a.m, oh my god, I would never be doing work at 1 a.m, so guys, prioritise my sleep way too much for that. But 1 p.m, absolutely. Nothing feels difficult anymore. And that's what I love about it, because I know my priorities, and I know that just 20 minutes of sitting down and doing something like planning my week or just planning my day makes a huge difference. Don't get me wrong though. As you probably gathered from the beginning of this episode, I still absolutely flop at this from time to time. Take my word, I have had many a meltdown to my mother, feeling like all I'm doing is working and nothing is slowing down, everything is just coming in and I have no way of doing it. But I trusted myself back in January 2023, when I had this whole like I need to sort out my life kind of moment, and I wanted to get back into my mindfulness properly, that I would find a process that would work for me, where I could still breathe, relax, enjoy myself, and actually fill my time with good stuff as well as the stuff I knew I had to do. And I would say it has taken me a year and a half to find every single part of that process that works. I still fall over, but that's okay, because I know I can put myself back into a situation where I'm calm and my time is my best friend, and I can figure it out and it won't be the end of the world. And this means that my self-care, your self-care, immediately becomes something you've prioritized, because you're taking care of your time, and thus you're taking care of yourself in the process. That is something you can never underestimate the power of. Time should become your best friend, because it means it's yours. It's not just this thing that seems to constantly be running. It's something that you work with and get to enjoy. I get to enjoy my work because I also know that there's other things going on in my life, and I don't feel like it's overwhelming me. 25 minutes on a Sunday planning my time out. You know, sometimes it can feel like diaries are useless, but if you actually figure out what works for you, you'll be amazed at how much time you can give back to yourself. It's incredible. Really, really, really do recommend it. Time is your best friend. You just have to figure out how. And so that brings us to the end of this episode this week with the Galene Woman podcast. I really hope you feel a little bit more inspired to go and make time your best friend, and understand that I get it. Time is something that does feel like it's always against us. And hopefully this episode has reminded you that that doesn't have to be the case. It's one of those core problems that comes with figuring out your self-care journey, and that's why I've spent this episode talking about what I have, because I think it's really, really important to integrate these kind of mini little things that just make your self-care so much easier, build on that self-care mindset, and integrate peaceful practices into your daily life. Don't forget about the giveaway that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Push that notify button so you know when I'm next rambling about self-care. For more tips, resources, be sure to visit www.galenecompany.com. One day I'll say that right. To see our blog, connect with us on social media, of course, all the usual ramble stuff, all the info for the giveaways on the social media, on our socials, and the website as well. Just a little tick on that one. Until next time, my absolute wonderful, darling people, take care of yourself and each other, because you deserve it.